London MP criticises botched LTNs as the residents of Ealing vote to scrap traffic zones. Boris Johnson's government has been heavily criticised by the MP for West Ealing and Acton over divisive low-traffic neighbourhood schemes brought in during the pandemic. In the Sunday Telegraph last week, MP Rupa Huck branded Ealing's low-traffic neighbourhoods as undemocratic and counterproductive. Ealing residents have a long-standing battle with the council over widespread rolling out of LTNs and are rightfully angry that their wish to get rid of them has so far been ignored. The MP stated that the undemocratic imposition of low-traffic neighbourhoods is damaging and counterproductive. She said, "We can all get behind the goal of reducing unsustainably high vehicle dependency, but the dramatic and undemocratic way which LTNs have appeared was completely wrong. Councils must resist the government's LTN bullying," and labelled it as the poison chalice of central funding. Had such schemes reached out to local demand, they might have been better received than the road-clogging monsters created by unelected bureaucrats to maximise their access to Grant Shapps' funding pot. Responses to Ealing Council's recent consultation on the 9 new LTNs, hurriedly brought in under the leadership of cycling enthusiast Julian Bell, found that the vast majority opposed the schemes, with up to 93% of residents who live on boundary roads saying they would like to see the LTNs removed. Predictably, many pro-LTN advocates, desperately trying to apply their own brand of maths to the consultation, argue that the respondents made up only a small percentage of Ealing's almost 345,000 residents. However, 20,000 respondents is a staggeringly high sample base if you take into consideration the results from other local consultations, and that is before you argue the case that most local authorities haven't yet bothered to consult at all. The fact is, everyone knew that picking apart and attempts at discrediting would begin straight after the findings were made public, and truth be told, detractors wouldn't criticise the validity of the consultation if the majority decided to keep them, would they? As well as the conclusive public consultation, Ealing residents have staged 2 protests that were attended by over 3,000 people and presented a 12,430 signature petition which combined should meet the government's requirements for the undemocratic LTNs to be removed as soon as possible. Ms Hook also drew attention to the council's introduction of a lucrative system of fines that allowed the council to extend the divisive schemes for a further 6 months. And it is reported that the local authority has already made nearly $3 million by fining drivers who broke LTN rules. This puts Ealing amongst the top 5 councils making the most from fines. Others include Enfield, Lambeth, Hackney and of course Islington. And additional to that, because local authorities retain the income from fines, it creates an opportunity for fines harvesting to become a business. We can already see this happening with many local authorities employing private companies to issue penalties. This could mean that local authority departments, particularly those in transport and environment, are susceptible to becoming heavily dependent on fines for their income. And I think we can all agree that transport policy should not be determined by monetary gain. Anger at the government and local authorities' intransigent attitude towards LTNs is to be expected, and has even turned local residents against rational, safe cycling infrastructure. Councils shouldn't be afraid to prioritise residents with improvements that work for them rather than falling for the promise of checks from Westminster. If the government wants more LTNs, then councils must make them fit for purpose. It must be noted also that an obstacle to reasonable discourse around LTNs is that active travel campaigning, which translates as cycling campaigning, has become a religious-like cult. But despite their folksy underdog pretensions, pro-LTN campaigners have a raft of powerful support that they can harness whenever needed. Perhaps you've noticed that LTN studies are reported on by the same people, where research is funded and conducted by those looking for the results that endorse LTNs. Certainly, the push to make London a car-free zone makes the lives of regular hard-working people that much harder. And for small businesses and tradespeople struggling to survive after lockdown, for the disabled and the taxi-dependent elderly and frail, these schemes are totally unacceptable. Traffic is also forced onto the streets the children will be walking down on their way to school next week. So be under no illusion. Widespread low-traffic neighbourhoods are a social inequality issue, as blanket policies like these instill indirect discrimination. Hence, the ubiquitous use of the social injustice of LTNs hashtag. Credit should go to Ealing Council for conducting a consultation that was clearer and more concise, as opposed to the loaded surveys, sham consultations and distorted partial data used by others. But it is time for the council to do the right thing. They went to the people and the people have spoken. It is now time to end the madness. That's it for this week. Remember, if you're up for presenting an opinion, and I know cabbies are not short of opinions, then you can DM me on Twitter at London Taxi Radio or my personal account at Sean Paul Day. Make sure you look after yourselves both physically and mentally. And remember, if you need help, there is no harm in asking for it. People care more than what you might realise. Have fun, be good, and I'll see you out there on the other side.
Thought you might say that.
London Taxi Radio, the cabby's choice.